Hey, what's up? Today's video is going to be about how to throw a flat cornhole bag. Before I get into that real quick, I want to apologize for the sound quality. There's quite a bit of wind blowing through here, as well as some construction traffic, cars, lawnmowers. I'm trying to tune a lot of that out and get that off the mics, and hopefully it doesn't come through on the video. If it does, I apologize, but I'll do my best in post-production to get the best sound quality for you. Anyway, we'll jump into the video here. The main key to throwing a flat bag is developing a throw that's comfortable for you, and it's also very repeatable. You want to be able to do the same motion, exactly the same, over and over again, so that you can be consistent on your bag flight and where it's hitting the board. And if you can develop a throw where you can get the bag out flat and it's the same trajectory, same distance, the bag's landing the same spot on the board every time, then you can go from there and build into a very good player. So there are a lot of different ways to throw a flat bag. You watch any tournament, you watch pros, you go to your local tournaments, you watch people out just throwing in their backyard. Everybody's got a different style, kind of a unique style. And so I'm not going to tell you that I know the perfect way. I'm going to show you the way that I throw it. I'm also going to show you some other variations, some other things you can do differently, things that I have done in the past, or reasons why I do what I do now, or advantages to do in other ways. I'll give you a little bit of a variety. In the end, it's going to be your throw, and you want to develop something that's comfortable for you, something that is easily repeatable so that you can be consistent with your throw, right? There are 4 parts to our throw, or I think 4 parts. You've got your stance, which is your foundation. I think that's the most important. I'm going to start there. Second, we'll go into the grip, the way you're holding the bag. Third is the actual arm motion, the swing, the throw, and the releases in that. And then fourth, it's the mental side of the game, the head game. Where are you looking? What are you focusing on? Where is your mind at each time you're throwing the bag? So I'll go through those 4 parts. I'll break them down for you. And so let's jump into it. We'll jump right into part one. Part one is the stance. Probably the most important thing is determine whether you want to step or not step. And there's, again, no right or wrong. There are a lot of successful players who have a step in their game. I mean, Matt Guy, for example, the greatest of all time, has a step in his game. He transitioned for a bit out of it. Now he's back to a step. The key with the step is just making sure you're starting in the same spot every time, whether it's at the back of the board, whether it's at the hole, whether it's the midway up. You want to be at the same starting spot so that when you step and you throw, you're always releasing from the same point. The last thing you want to do is one time start here and you step and release here. The next time you get up, you step and release here. And all of a sudden, you're going to see the difference is if you're doing the same throw, that bag is a foot. It's one time it's landing here, the next time it's landing up here. You're not going to be consistent with it. So make sure if your step is there, you're very consistent. The other thing with the step is, do you step with your non-throwing foot forward or do you step with your throwing foot forward, right? And that's, I'm going to transition to that as I go into the non-step as to which is better or what you should do. For me, when I first started, I started with a step because I came from a background of sports, playing baseball, football, and every time you threw a baseball, you stepped. So it's just more natural for me to step and then get into that throw. Eventually, I transitioned out of that because the step adds a lot of variables into your throw, and just it's more things to be worried about, more things that can go wrong. Because if you step, again, like I said, if your step is different, you're shorter or longer one time, it changes the distance. If you're a little bit off to the left or right when you land, it's changing where the bag's landing on the board. Or if you step and realize, oh, I'm off, now you're trying to compensate in the middle of your throw, and it just throws everything off. So I wanted to eliminate as many variables as possible and make my throw as simple as possible. So I went to just a standing throw. And again, when you're standing still, the same with the step, make sure you're standing in the same spot every time, right? It doesn't have to be the same on both sides. You don't have to always have your foot against the board. For me, I think of if I'm standing beside the board with both feet, I pull it back, and that's where I'm standing. Same if I go outside arm, it's my feet, and then I step back. So I'm always going to have my 2 feet beside the board, and then I just start from there. And so I can be consistent. I don't have to guess where I'm starting at. I stand with my non-throwing leg forward simply because it's comfortable. I've tried throwing with my throwing leg forward, and I can do it. It just feels different, and I haven't really been able to adjust to that. If you're starting out brand new, I would recommend going throwing leg forward, and here's why. When you have your throwing leg forward and you throw and release, your body is really in a straight line. Everything's kind of lined up. It's really a natural position. When you do non-throwing leg and you throw, if you look, my shoulders are open this way, my hips are open that way, my body's twisted. I'm going almost across my chest to throw. So it's a little bit more of a twist, a little more, you're kind of going against your body more. So as far as a fluid throw, throwing leg forward is going to give you a little more fluid, a little more natural, easier release. Also, when I throw and release with my bag, with my non-throwing leg forward, if I just put my throwing leg forward and step, I can actually reach further out. You're getting another inch, 2 inches. When I just by switching feet, because I'm having to now twist my shoulders back, I can't. It's really awkward. I'm having to struggle to do this. But if I put my throwing leg forward, I can do that easily, right? And I get a better reach. Again, you're not talking about much, but sometimes that inch or 2 inches makes a little bit easier throw, a little bit easier to aim, right? So if you're going to start out and you're starting from square one and you're trying to learn all over, I would go throwing leg foot forward. If you're used to throwing, then go with what's comfortable. If you need a step. If you want to put your non-throwing leg forward, do it. Just find what works for you. And let's do that consistently and develop the rest of your throw. And then as you get going, you can come back and you can tweak things or change things up. All right, let's go into part two. So part two is the grip, and there are a lot of different ways to grip a bag. The first one throw is just a standard way, which is where you take the bag, you're going to lay your hand flat, take the bag, you almost want to go deeper into your palm here, right? You're going to go deeper into your palm. You're going to take your bag fingers and you're actually going to curl them. And then take your thumb and just lay it across the top, right? So you got your fingers curled here, you got your thumb across the top, it's deep in your palm. You're going to grab about a third to a quarter of the beads. I mean, you can grab more or less, maybe what's more comfortable to you, but you still want, there's beads out here, right? You're going to have beads. You're not putting all the beads in your hand and trying to hold them. You're just grabbing enough to get a good handle on the beads, but you don't want to overextend. The one thing or a few things you want to be aware of is you don't want your fingers straight in the back, right? You need your fingers curled. And whatever grip you do here, or I'm showing you here, I'm always have the fingers curled here. And I'm not putting them out and clamping down. I'm actually curling my fingers and then grabbing the bag. And the reason for that is this is where part of your spin of the bag's going to come from. So when your fingers are like this, when you go to throw, you're going to straighten your fingers out. And by just straightening your fingers, if I'm just straightening my fingers, see how that bag is already starting to rotate out? That's where part of your rotation is coming from. In fact, that's where a lot of rotation is coming from. When you actually let go of the bag and straighten your fingers out into the throw, which we'll get to here soon, that curled fingers is actually going to give you a good amount of rotation in the bag. So drop it in the palm of your hand, even closer back here to your thumb. Curl your fingers, grab it, take your thumb, come across. Your thumb is basically just holding it as a guide to keep the bag from falling out of your hand. You're not really putting much down on that. A couple of variations here. You can do what I call a claw, is take your index finger and bring it over the top of the bag and hold it. What this will help with is if you're throwing and you're finding your bag is kind of wobbling through the air like a wounded duck, putting that finger on top, index finger on top, will actually help give it a little bit of a guide as it comes out, as your fingers are straightening out, to keep it a little bit flatter. It's good. I actually did that for a while because when I first started, and this was my grip, and I did have issues with the bag fluttering. I went to that claw and tried that for a while. What I found out is it smoothed the flight out a little bit, but it really didn't matter. That little bit of wobble is not going to hurt you. In fact, I mentioned Matt Guy earlier. You can watch Matt Guy throw. You ever watch one of his throws? When he throws, his bag in the air is not perfectly flat. It has a wobble at times, and yet he's the greatest to play the game, right? So you don't have to have a perfectly flat bag. It's just got to be flat-ish, right? Another thing you can do is you can take your index finger and grab and curl over the end of the bag. What that does when you do the release, and you can take this finger and pull it across and actually generate more spin on that bag. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel like when you do that, you're also affecting the trajectory of the bag, and how hard or how little you flick that finger dictates to which direction the bag's traveling as far as, and also the amount of spin. Just adds another variable to the throw that you have to be concerned about and try to control. Another grip that you can have if you're having issues, especially if you have a smaller hand, you have issues holding the bag, you can actually put it back in your hand and take your thumb. I'll move it a little further towards the finger where the fingers meet your palm here. Put the bag there. Take your thumb and reach all the way across. So you're still going to have your curled fingers here. Take your thumb, reach all the way across, and grab and pull the bag like that. If you've got a smaller hand or you don't like the bag flopping, that's a good way to really control the bag so the bag doesn't move. I did that for a while. I, again, didn't like it. And so I actually progressed onto the butterfly grip, which is similar to this, but not quite as dramatic. The butterfly grip is you're actually going to set the bag more into your first joints here, just closer to your fingertips, not all the way out, I don't think. But right on those right on your first joints here, your first knuckles on your finger, right across there. Fingers curled again on the back, just like they were. And then you're going to take your thumb and you're just going to press into the bag, right? So all I'm doing is pressing my thumb into my middle finger. You can go index, middle, your ring finger, whichever is comfortable to you. I tend to go towards my middle finger. You're not actually going to touch your finger. You're just going to press down. All you're trying to do, so when I hold it like this, one, all the beads are going down at the bottom. I'm not taking my thumb and I'm pressing down in the direction of my middle finger. Again, they're not touching. There's still a gap between the two, but I'm pressing down. What that does is it gives you, it's called a butterfly. You can see it looks like kind of butterfly wings. It actually controls or holds a lot of the beads here. It also gives you control of the bag as far as when you get to the release point of the throw of whether you want the bag to be front loaded, back loaded, you want it to tilt one way or the other for cutting. You get a lot more control over the bag than what I feel like you get when you hold a standard throw like this. There's so much bag flopping here. There's a lot of bag you really don't have to. You're only controlling this section and not the rest of this. I feel like it's not, for me, it wasn't as easy to control the bag, the way the tilt and the axis of the bag out of my hand like this. That's why I went more to a butterfly, because now I have complete control of where the bag's going. It's not flopping, it's not flipping around. Plus, the beads are stable, so I don't feel any movement. When I hold it like this, as I come back, you feel the bead shifting, you feel the bag flopping. For some of you, it may not matter. For me, it was a little distracting, so I went more to that butterfly grip. Again, I'd recommend starting out, if you're brand new starting out, start with standard grip here. Get comfortable throwing this and getting that flat bag out of this, and then you can tweak it as you go from there. But next, we're going to go into the actual throw. So let's get on to part three. Is the actual throw, and this is where all the magic happens, so to speak. This is where you're going to dictate how the bag comes out of your hand, how much spin it has, how it's tilted, which direction it's going, to determine how it responds when it hits the board, right? So we've got our stance down, whatever it is you want, your non-throwing foot forward, throwing foot forward step, whatever. You've got your grip, whatever type of grip you want. Now the throw, I want the throw to be, unless you're stepping. If you're stepping, you're going to have body movement, right? But I want to minimize the body movement. So when I'm doing my throw, in fact, if you go back and look at like some of my very first video and stuff, I used to throw. I actually had a dip. I would dip down and pop up. Didn't realize I was doing that. I started watching the videos and like, man, where'd that come from? So I had to kind of get that back out of me. And once I eliminated that, I became even more consistent than what I was. So ideally, when I do my throw, all I want is I just want this arm moving. The arm and hand and wrist, I want to minimize the movement, keep my body as quiet as possible so that I don't have other stuff to worry about, right? Also, when I come back, I'm not really coming back like a really full backswing here. I'm not trying to come through and whip it through, because one, when you do that, my shoulders now have, I don't want to go beyond the movement of my shoulder. I don't want my shoulder or my chest to have to turn or rotate to get that throw through. Now, if you're having trouble with the distance and your bags are coming up short, you might want to add a little more backswing to get that momentum. You also might want to, again, go back and add that step and that backswing, and you can get the momentum and have a little easier time getting that bag to the board. But if you're not having a problem with the distance, I would minimize that backswing. Also, when your arm comes down, I don't lock my arm, my wrist, and my elbow and try to keep my arm perfectly straight. I let it come down and hang natural. I want it to be as fluid, as natural as it can be, so I don't have to think about it. So think about when your arm is just hanging there, you're not typically walking around with your palms facing forward or even the back of your hands facing forward. It's kind of a your hands are right at your side, your back of your hand facing out, maybe just slightly forward. And that's kind of what I want. I just let my arm hang naturally, drop down naturally. And then as I come back up, this rotation of my arm rotating, my wrist and palm rotating to end up with my palm up and my fingers come out. So that the throw is I do this. This is where This whole rotation here is where the bag rotation is coming from, between the fingers extending and my wrist and forearm rotating. That's where I'm getting the spin on the bag. I am not trying to flick the bag out there really hard. I'm not trying to come and spin the bag like this. And I see players that do that, and they're very successful. They'll come out and they'll spin across here, and that works for them. And I have no issues with that. I have an issue with that for me, because it's another variable that I've got to add in there, and I want to eliminate as many variables as possible because I want to be super consistent. And so if you're starting and trying to develop this throw, I would just try to make it as simple as possible, right? So we're coming down naturally, and then we're coming up. As we're coming up, remember our fingers are curled. As you come up and rotate, this is where you got to time it. You want to time it so that you're releasing the bag somewhere about chest to shoulder height in here. You want to release it in this area, and you want to open your hand. Basically, my thumb is just coming off the bag. My thumb is not manipulating the bag whatsoever. My thumb is just there as a guide. So as I come through, I take my thumb off and open my fingers out, and that's what allows the bag to fly out, right? I don't know if I can demonstrate this, but I just want my palm up, palm facing up. If my palm is tilted here or here, the bag's going to tilt. Palm perfect level, the bag's coming out level. The fingers extend out, and how hard, how violently you extend the fingers will dictate the rotation on there as well. So you can, if you want a little more rotation, you can, a little more explosive. Those fingers will give you more rotation. A little less rotation, you can go a little easier with that. Play with that and develop that for you. But the idea is, and even if you do a regular grip, like you're doing a standard grip here, as you come through, same thing, fingers out, palm up. That gives you that flat bag and that rotation. It just takes practice. And I would recommend, when you're doing this, the throw is probably the hardest thing you're going to have to figure out. Don't worry about distance. Don't even worry about how far you're. In fact, if you want to just not even have a cornhole board out there, just go out in the yard somewhere and just practice throwing, and just get used to that bag coming out and watch it spin flat. That's all you want to do. And once you get consistent with throwing that bag flat, then you can bring the board in and get used to hitting the board, right? And then you kind of start piecing it all together piece by piece, but you've got to build it up there. The key here is the timing of getting the time of that fingers and the release at the same point. Once you develop that, then it'll all come together. And then once you develop and get consistent with that release, then all you have to do is change your release point. If you want to throw an airmail, release it a little bit higher than normal. So let that bag hang in the air a little longer. You can have the exact same throw, a little later release, and now you've got your airmail with very little change in your throw, and that's how you get consistent with that. Same if you're trying to throw a hard push, release the bag a little lower. You may have to throw a little harder with your arm, a little bit more rotation, but it's where, if you release it down here, it's coming out lower, harder. Up here, it's kind of that average, and then as you go higher, it's coming out softer and higher, right? So that's how you're manipulating where the bag is, how the bag lands. It's really more your release point than anything else, right? So just one last time here, I'll show you. Come back normal. Again, I'm not coming back that far past my hip. I'm trying to keep my body pretty still. I'm not dipping down. I'm not trying to twist. I want things to stay as still as possible, not being rigid. I mean, I want to be fluid, but trying to keep this pretty straight. Let the arm and the wrist and the forearm, everything, let the fingers all do the work. Come back and just release. And that's the flat bag. So the fourth and final part of this is the head game, the mental side of this, right? And so when you're throwing a bag, before you start your throw, you got to picture where you want the bag to land. And so for me, I'm not looking at the hole when I throw. I don't want to look at where I want the bag to go. I want to look at where I want the bag to land. And the reason is because depending on the type of throw I'm doing what I'm doing, I may want the bag to land a little bit one way or the other. Maybe I'm trying to collect a blocker that's out there, so I don't want the bag going straight up because it's going to bully it out of the way. I want the bag to come more up here and collect both of them in there, right? So if I'm looking at the hole, where's the bag going? Who knows? If I'm looking down here, so I want to look more here. Find a spot on the board, whether it's some of the wood grain you can see, maybe it's a graphic you can see, whatever. Find a spot that you can pick, and that's where your bag needs to land. And as you play on new boards, that's what the down and backs are for. Part of the down and backs is trying to figure out, where do I need my bag to land on this board for it to go up? Because board conditions vary, right? A stickier board, you may have to land further up. Sometimes a stickier board causes more kicks. You want the bag to land a little further one way or the other to compensate for the kick. A faster board, you're going to land a little further down. Maybe you want to land a little softer. So those are all things you can control if you're looking at the board. If you're looking at the hole and I get to a stickier board, you can't change your aim, right? You don't want to aim up here now, right? So it's just harder. pick where you want the bag to land. Focus on that when you throw every time, and keep your mind focused there, and you have a better chance of hitting where you're looking at, right? The other thing is you want to pick a smaller target. It's that the thing I got from golf was a small target equals small misses, right? So if I pick and I want my bag to land here, and so if I miss, I'm hitting here, but I'm still on the board, right? If my target is here and I miss, I'm off the board. I'm front board. I'm over here. I'm off the back, right? So if you have a bigger target and you miss, you're going to be further out, right? So pick that small target. Really, I mean, almost think about exactly where you want that bag to hit, and then watch it. Sometimes when I throw, I don't look at the bag. I keep my eye on the board and see how close it was to hit and where I want to, and then I can adjust my next throw to dial it into where I want it. Or I see, oh, it hit my target, but you know what? It didn't do what I wanted to do. Now let me adjust my target one way or the other. Further, deeper on the board, shallower, left or right, whatever, to get the bag to end up where, because in the end I want the bag up here at the hole, or maybe I want a blocker, so I don't want it in the hole, right? So I need to adjust where the bag lands to get it to stop there. So focus where you want the bag to land, and you want to be dialed in on that every throw. If you start taking your mind, let your mind wander, and just start aimlessly throwing, that's when you start getting really inconsistent and the bags are going all over the place. So before we throw, take a moment, calm yourself down, focus, visualize where you want it to go, but also figure out where you want it to land, just to make the determination. Don't start a throw thinking, well, I may want it there, but I may want it there. You're guessing, okay, do I want the bag here? Do I want the bag there? In the middle of your throw, you make your decision and make your mind up. And at that point, who knows where it's going? Make the mind up before you throw. And once you make your mind up, stick to it. Don't second guess yourself. Stick to it and complete the throw. Put all that together, the stance, the grip, the arm throw, the mental side, and that's how you get a consistent flat bag, and that's how you're going to improve your game. So do me a favor, comment below if you've got some tips or some things maybe I missed, some things that you've done that has helped you improve your game. I'll try to come out in the future with a bag or a video on training about some different techniques, different ways to practice that'll help improve your game besides just throwing. Right, so look forward to that. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I do put that video out. And again, drop some comments down below on maybe some things I didn't cover. Maybe there's a different type of grip you use, a different type of stance, why you use it, what works, what doesn't work for you. I'd love to hear your feedback, guys. Appreciate your support. I thank you for watching.